Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guest is Sutton Abernathy. He is one of the few 3000 GT people out there still tearing it up every shootout, and he has one of the most beautiful stealths on the planet. How are you doing today, Sutton?
Good. How about yourself?
I am great, man. I'm so glad to have you on. Like I said, we don't get enough 3S love on this podcast, and I know I get a lot of criticism for it, and I'm going to try to work on it, but it's tough. Like you said right before we started, there's not a lot of people out there racing them still.
That is correct.
And, it sounds like the big issue is cost. Maybe that's why the 4G63 swap became so popular there.
I would agree with that. I know that's Eric Lingort's view on the subject.
Save a lot of money.
Everybody likes saving money.
But there's just something about a 6G7.2 with some bolt-on turbos that just feels amazing.
It does. My wallet doesn't like it, but my brain does.
Your heart does. That's what really matters.
Both of them.
So, Sutton, why don't you tell us a little bit about the setup on your Stealth?
So currently, right prior to the shootout, I had to put a random motor in. So I dropped a 93 plus forged crank in a long block in, swapped my oil pump and pan and TT cams from my old 92 motor, some other random small bolt-ons like the BC cam gears and just supporting stuff. It's got a water meth kit on it, 13T turbos with the HL turbine wheel, so basically the first step up from a stock turbo. Manual boost controller, full exhaust. It's got upgraded sway bars, deleted rear steering, second gen brakes, upgraded radiator, upgraded side mount intercoolers. For the most part, that's basically it. Some upgraded shifter bushings to clean up the shifting a little bit. When I pulled the motor out and put this one in, I also pulled the transmission out, tore it apart, put a 300M output shaft, and then a Revenge-built T-case. Can't thank Chris Bankin enough for helping me out with that and working with me on my short time frame of getting my old one to him, getting this one rebuilt and sent to me, and all the parts I needed. So good shout out to him. But I got a 25 spline T-case, freshly rebuilt from them with a hardened output spool, drive shaft shop, 2-piece aluminum drive shaft. For the most part, that's about it. Just since I've got the car, basically went through it from top to bottom to do everything I can to bring it up to pace with what it needs to be.
Yeah, when you were telling me about the time frame that you were under and Chris got you all the parts in time, I thought, my God, those guys, I mean, if it wasn't for what they did, you probably wouldn't have made it to the shootout with the car.
Correct. Yeah, so I pulled the original motor out August 20th is when it was hanging on the hoist, and I work so much and take care of my kids during the week, so I literally have weekends to do it. So Saturday and Sunday is my time I can spend in the shop. So shootout started September 15th, so I had weekends from August 20th to September 15th to pull my old engine, swap everything needed from the old one to the new one, put the new one in, put a backup transmission into the car just so that I could tune it and make sure that the motor was going to run right, pull that transmission back out after I rebuilt the one with the parts from Chris and put that one in. I think the last weekend before the shootout is when that went in. And
wow.
Then bring it to the shootout.
That's a serious shootout scramble. I know a lot of people talk about the shootout scramble, but that's got to be up there with, people putting engines in the hotel parking lot the day before. I mean, that's crazy.
Honestly, I've never had to shoot out scramble at all, so I guess that makes up for my previous 4 years of not having to touch anything beforehand.
It
'Cause,
finally
I
caught
mean,
up with you.
yeah, in a 12.5 class, you're generally not breaking too much stuff, so generally it's been super reliable. But I was kind of battling a little issue, almost like a misfire above a certain psi boost. So I was trying to figure that out and did a compression check. Lo and behold, I had 90, 95 on 2 cylinders, 100 on 2 cylinders, and 120 and 122 on the other 2 cylinders. Wow. And I'm like, I have this extra engine that I paid $50 for sitting in the corner of my shop. Shout out to Sean Werning for that one. Another person I met through the shootout, that awesome dude, helped me out a bunch in that aspect. So I just happened to have this motor sitting there and was like, well, guess it's time.
That's awesome. Hey, the scramble finally caught up with you.
Yep.
So you seem very passionate about the 3S platform. What made you choose the 3S platform in the first place?
I guess at first it was just because that was the car I was able to get. And a little somewhat backstory on the car is that this actual car that I have, when I was 15, a buddy of mine always had cool cars, had him older M3s, because this is back in 2000-ish when he had those. So he had an M3. It actually rolled out of his driveway and got totaled into the ditch. So he wanted a Stealth, so he went and bought a Stealth RT twin turbo, this actual car. So when I was 15, I got to ride in this car all the time, and it's the first all-wheel drive car I rode in, the first turbo car I rode in. And I just thought it was, awesome back then when I was 15. It's the coolest thing I ever rode in. And then he wanted to get another M3, so his dad took over payments for it, which only had a few payments left, which is around, I think, 2005 is when that happened, and he switched to an M3. And his dad, who is prone to leaving cars sit in their driveway and never drive them, they let the Stealth sit for 6 months. Went out to try and start it, wouldn't start. So rather than address that issue and probably put a new battery in it, they let it sit for 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
So then further down the road in 2015, I've started working on cars professionally at this point. Still friends with my buddy Chris that owned the car. And I'm like, hey, whatever happened to that Stealth? And he's like, oh, it's sitting out at my dad's still. And I'm like, what, do you want to get rid of it? And he's like, yeah, probably. Let me talk to him. So he talked to his dad. His dad called me. He's like, honestly, I just don't want to see the car sit there and, end up rusting away and turn into nothing. So if you give me what it's worth in scrap value, you can have it.
Holy cow.
So I went out there, looked at it. It was up to the wheels and sunk in the gravel in a gravel driveway in the middle of Ohio. I gave him $600 for it, called a tow truck, had to pull it out of the earth basically. And I think that may have actually saved the car a little bit because it sat so far into the ground that it couldn't get dew underneath it every day, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
So I am in Ohio, so not the best weather for cars. Luckily, he never drove it in the winter. He always, kept his summer cars summer and his winter cars winter. So the underside of the car, if I put it up on the lift and showed you a video today, you would never know that it sat outside for 10 years. Or just looking at the car in general. I mean, it's after I cleaned it up and did a lot of body work and stuff to it of buffing, and I've replaced some panels. Like one side sat in the sun and the other side never saw sun. So the driver's side wasn't too bad, but the passenger side was so faded that I ended up putting a new door, side skirt, panels like that on. Complete interior's been replaced. That I lucked out and got a mint full leather interior for it from some guy in PA. So just for the past, since 2015, buying every little part that I can score a good deal on and bring it back to a nice looking car.
Well, you deserve a lot of props because, after you sent me some of those pictures of when you bought it, I mean, to say that it's come a long way is an understatement. It is made a beyond transformation.
So when I bought the car, I do have to thank my buddy Chris for he was into detailing and body stuff. So I bought the car. He came over one day and we're looking at it, and my intentions when I bought it were just that I was going to have a kind of beater car because the paint was so bad, and it obviously when I got it, it didn't look great. And he's like, "Oh, I bet we can buff that out," and I'm like, "I don't know, man." But it come to find out, Mitsubishi used a single stage red paint on the first gen cars, and that being said, that doesn't get clear coat peel. It just bakes the heck out of the red paint. So as long as you have paint that you still have left after you get all the oxidized paint off, you got nice shiny paint again. So I would say that's what saved this car from just being a beater car. But once he buffed it and I seen that it's worth me making it into a nice car, that's when kind of the plans changed a little bit.
Well, hell yeah. I'm very thankful for your friend because I'm glad that, it's hard to think about a daily driver 3000 GT or a Stealth and, the kind of cost it would take to keep that maintenance at a high standard that a daily driver needs.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it if I had to pay somebody to do the work, honestly.
Yeah.
Not to mention nobody wants to touch them. They are quite finicky, so unless you kind of specialize in them, they generally end up messing stuff up if you take it to a local shop.
Right. Just end up making it worse. So, besides the turbos you have on it now, what different setups have you had on it that have really worked well for you?
Other than this, it was just stock for a while. Then I got these upgraded ones. I had to get a Chrome ECU, which to the DSM people is like a Wish.com version of EC or
DSM Link.
Yeah. Doesn't have all the great mods, like doesn't have speed density that works properly. But it is a flashable Mitsu ECU that I can use ECU flash and Evo scan. For certain power levels that I can still keep the stock mass airflow, it works well. Some people use it and get quite high in the power levels, but they have to use a mass airflow translator and all that. So that current setup, this I've had for quite a while. I've kind of had an issue with the ECU since I bought it, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit that the person that makes it wasn't willing to help me out with it. Basically, AC worked on this car since I had it. I put this new ECU in, my AC didn't work.
What?
I took the ECU out, put the old one back in, AC works again. So I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, something's wrong with this. My AC doesn't work. He's like, okay, send it back to me. I'll check it out. He takes it, says that it works fine on his car. And I'm like, well, is it a first gen? And he's like, well, no, it's a 90-something with like a second gen with a jumper harness. I'm like, all right, well, what I'm telling you is that it doesn't work in my 92. And if I put my old ECU back in, my AC works. Like, for some reason, when I turn the dash on and command the AC on, it's not running through the computer and commanding the AC clutch on. I can ground it out and make it come on, but I shouldn't have to do that for a factory replacement ECU.
Right.
That is supposed to have every option working. So we went back and forth for a while, and then he ghosted me. So after that, I was like, screw this ECU. So I bought an AM Infinity, which is still in the works. I have the harness ran already for it. So the plan is for the future, which is close to happening. I'm waiting on a crankshaft to get back from being balanced, and my cylinder heads for head lift fix, because the deck on the 6G heads flexes under high cylinder pressure and leaks coolant into the cylinders. So there's a fix for that that's $750. They take aluminum all thread and basically screw it into the deck of the head and support those areas that flex, and then weld it up and then deck the head again, and it doesn't flex anymore. So I have both of those parts out in New York at Merkel Race Engines. As soon as I get them back from them, then I can start assembling my 4-bolt motor that I have here. Currently, all the NAs and the first-gen blocks are 2-bolt mains. The stronger second-gen block for the turbos has 4-bolt mains. So I have a whole extra block sitting here ready to go. I'm just waiting on the final parts to come back to put it together. So the setup eventually, hopefully middle of this winter, I'll be able to start slapping it all together and get it going, is twin TD05 20G turbos with TD06 turbines, tile gates on tubular manifolds. And then I've got a fuel hanger for twin Walbro 450s, or not really sure what I want to do on a pump yet, honestly. I may just go with an external that I don't have to worry about that. But the fuel system, I got all the A and N lines already. Just need to put into the car. Mostly all the supporting fuel systems here. I mean, if I could show you a picture right now of my shelves at my shop, it's like I probably got thousands of dollars sitting here just waiting to go into the car.
Jeez.
No point in doing it on a stock internal engine because that won't last very long. So I've just been slowly acquiring parts. So eventually, my goal is to have a 750 wheel, somewhere around there. Probably going to be on corn to get that far. Car that I can drive on the road and bring it to the few drag races I do a year.
Well, hell yeah. I like that plan.
Yeah, me too. I've waited long enough. It's time for it to finally happen.
Oh yeah. So Sutton, if you could go back in time and maybe stop yourself from dragging out this $600 Stealth, would you?
Of course not.
Good deal.
No, I'm happy with my decision. To the point that I even had a clean 97 GSX that I got a pretty sweet deal on. Didn't have to pay for it outright. Buddy of mine let me make payments on it. No rust car, no mods. Perfect starter for a platform. But just driving it and then getting back in my Stealth and driving it, even though my Stealth isn't, at this point, it's not anything like super crazy fast. I still preferred the Stealth over the GSX. And then he came back to me and said if I ever sold it, he'd like to buy it back. And I just felt like I was neglecting it. Just sat here. I put 1,200 miles on the GSX in 4 years. And I'm like, that money could help me finish off the Stealth. So that's what I did. I sold it back to him and got the final pieces of the puzzle for this one. So may have been a dumb decision, but I definitely chose the Stealth over a clean 97 GSX.
Do it over again, yeah. Awesome. So
I had an opportunity to bail ship and chose not to.
Well, Sutton, what is it about this car that keeps you loyal, that keeps you motivated?
I mean, driving it. Honestly, like, the GSX was a little more, I would say, like, comfortable if I was to do, like, super long drive in it, but the steering, the handling, there's just something about it that I just adore this car. I mean, it does have coilovers, and it's lowered, and like I said, the sway bars, so it does handle quite well. I suppose also there's some attachment since I've done so much work to it, and I've basically taken it from nothing to what it is now. I don't think I could ever sell the car.
Yeah.
So you just close your eyes and keep going forward.
I like that plan.
Stay away from bad drivers, because I think that would be the only thing that would ever. I'm pretty cautious in it when it comes to like messing around on the streets where I would possibly be able to total it or something crazy like that. But usually every time I see one of these getting totaled, it's always some immature kid texting on a phone that runs a stop sign and plows into a Mint 99 VR4, and it's like, ugh.
The pain.
Yeah. Some things aren't replaceable. Like, yeah, I could get another one, but it's not this one.
Right. It doesn't have everything that I've poured into this.
Yep, this one's made me bleed, gave me a black eye. We've had our battles.
Heck yeah. So you already talked about what the future holds, but let's talk about the goals with that new setup with the TD05s. You got a number in mind? You gonna?
I honestly don't. I don't know for a quarter mile time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say low tens. I wouldn't say it's a goal. I don't have anything that, like, if I don't hit a number, I'm going to be depressed about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's still other things I'm going to have to do. Like, even at my power level at this year's shootout, like the first half of the weekend, I was hooking up great. I was leaving like a 1760 foot, I think. And I don't know what happened, but between Friday night Saturday night and Sunday morning, I went from leaving perfect to just spinning and smoking the tires off the line, which normally I don't leave that hard because I was always worried about my output shaft and the trans, but now that I got the transmission and the transfer case kind of taken care of in my mind, that I'm not so worried about it. I can't leave any harder because now I'm spinning, so I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do for tires, and if I do, then I may have to drop down brakes to something smaller so that I can fit a smaller rim and more tire on there. Try and keep myself from breaking axles and drivetrain parts. So I kind of know what it's going to take, but we'll see where it ends up. My goal is 750 horsepower around there. Anything above that, I feel like it's borrowed time on a stock crank just because they are known to bend and flex, and it trashes the mains, and then you lose the rod. And I don't really want to go down that road.
Yeah.
At least until I can afford one of them billet cranks.
That does not sound like a fun road to be on.
No. Luckily, I got this motor that's in there now, and it's got a spare forged crank in it. So if it does come to that, I don't want to have to do it, but I will slap another crank in it. But it just sounds like more money.
Yeah.
That's what my brain thinks.
So what about long-term goals? Do you foresee you getting one of those billet cranks and maybe doing a single turbo setup or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be against it. Part of the trouble that I see with the 6G is that the turbos that came on them are super, super small, so they make max boost at like 3 psi.
No kidding.
So that's not really great for your engine when you start cranking stuff up and making a lot of cylinder pressure and back pressure. Where the single turbo guys, they're coming on 55, $6,000, somewhere around there. Some of them a little bit lower, 4,500, 5. So although it's a lot of work, I feel like it's probably a little bit better on the engine just because you can still get the max power you want without having to destroy the bottom end of the motor doing it too soon in the RPM range.
Okay.
Some of it's personal preference, kind of a lot of stuff in the way for a single turbo. Engine harness runs across the trans, which would be right where the turbo is, so that has to be managed. And then the shift cables run right where both exhaust pipes would come from the heads and run around the back side of the engine. So I do know a few people with the single turbo setup. One of them that I know has had issues with melting the shifter cables.
Oh.
So there's some things like that are kind of a hassle with single turbo. So I mean, it just depends what you really want to do.
Yeah.
I'll see how far this setup can get me, and play it by ear and wallet after that.
So you don't really have a number in mind of, well, if I hit this, then I'm just going to stay with this setup.
Well, I will tell you, when I first decided I was going to upgrade it, I was like, yeah, I mean, I just want 400 horse, nothing major. But then I got there, and I was like, yeah, I want more. So then I had actually read, when I first got into modifying this car and being my first turbo car, was like, always build over what you think you want, because you're always going to want more. And I'm like, no, I'll be fine with it. Well, that was the truest shit I ever read, because I should have never bought these turbos. I should have never bought this ECU. I should have just from the start went for the gold, and I probably would have saved a lot of money, because doing things twice or three times really isn't cost effective on the wallet whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, but it's one of those things where you kind of get the experience, right?
Yeah. And when I got the car, I hadn't actually started drag racing. I had started doing autocross with it.
Okay.
And part of the problem there is because their rules in autocross are so crazy that I couldn't be competitive in it, because the second you make a change like an exhaust or turn the boost up, they put you into this street modified class.
Oh,
and I'm like,
shit.
okay. And then I go in there with like full interior removed RX-7s with, big turbos, and I'm like, well, I don't have a chance against that currently. So
you either stay stock or you go all out.
Yeah, basically. So it kind of made it to where it wasn't. I mean, I still enjoy it. I like all sorts of racing, whether it's racing my side-by-side, road course, autocross, drag racing. I mean, it's all a thrill. I love horsepower. I love racing in general, really anything. So, but it definitely kind of killed the want to like fully win something like that in
Right.
this type of car. I mean, if I wanted to do autocross and be competitive, I'd probably just get a Miata.
Right. Have to start with a different platform.
Yeah, yep.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Revenge Performance and Transmission. Revenge is the place to get the parts and advice you need to right the wrongs in your vehicle. They partner with industry leaders in parts distribution and warehousing to get you the best possible prices and fastest shipping. With their real-time inventory on their website, if it says in stock, it's ready to ship from them or from their many national distribution partners. They have hundreds of thousands of parts on their website available, so I guarantee they can get revenge on your ride. Find out more about their products and services at revengeperformance.com. So, have you had any other Mitsubishis in your life that you want to talk about that maybe you liked or didn't like?
Well, the GSX is about the only other driving one that I had.
Okay.
Buddy of mine, actually, I got back from the shootout, and I had this guy that was going to sell me a Stealth that somebody was supposed to do a timing belt on it, and took it all apart, and then never came back to his house.
Jeez.
So I was trying to help him with it, and he had called me up and was like, hey, why don't you just come buy this thing? I'm trying to move to Florida. I don't have time for it. And I'm like, all right. Well, then I talked to my buddy with that GSX, and he's like, hey, I think I'm going to sell the GSX. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure no bank's going to give me a loan for that. And I know, you probably want a decent penny for it, so I don't have that kind of change just laying around.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to let you make payments on it. And the skeptical person in me was like, that seems sketchy. Like, I make payments to you and then you take the car back and then I'm out my money. Like, that doesn't seem like a good plan.
Yeah.
But just for shits and giggles, I researched it, and you can actually go to the BMV and do a title lien, and with a purchase agreement and a notarized bill of sale, they put a lien title on the car. I got tags in my name, had to pay the taxes up front, and then just basically took a receipt book. Every time I paid him money, we both signed it. I keep the receipt book. After all of the payments are done, then I was able to go with him down to the BMV. They switched title over to me. Tags were already on it. Taxes were already paid, and it was my car after that.
I did not know that.
So that was actually sweet that I was able to get a 120,000 mile, I believe, I'm guessing a hairdresser of some kind owned this car, because it was definitely a female-owned car, and it never had any mods to it. It was super clean, always stored inside. So it was awesome having a mint GSX, and honestly, I got a bunch of comments on it. People love the car, but it just didn't have the connection to me that this one does.
Yeah.
So in the process of that sale, the guy that had the timing belt removed one calls me up, and he's like, well, how much money do you got? And I'm like, dude, I think I got like $600 right now. I could afford to like just play around with. He's like, all right, why don't you come pick the car up, give me $600. Never met this dude before, mind you.
Oh, wow.
Come pick this car up, give me the $600 you got, and then whenever you get the rest of it, just you can just pay me on PayPal or something. And I'm like, all right. So I drove up to Cleveland, bought the car off of him. I had my cousin with a U-Haul trailer, and took the car back here, put a timing belt on it, still didn't run. The whole reason the car got torn apart was because the crankshaft sensor was bad.
Oh my gosh.
So I ended up with a red 93 Stealth with 100,000 miles. So basically the same car, 1 year newer than mine, with 100,000 miles on it. And then I got it for, I think I ended up giving him $900 total for it. So that was more or less something I could make some money off of. So I think I sold it for like $3,000. Didn't really, it still needed like interior work and hood, and I'm not trying to do that on two cars after I've done it on my car.
Right.
So I got it running to where it was, able to be drove and could be somebody else's project, and I sold it for $3,000. And then I bought another 95 yellow, I don't know if you've seen those banana looking, I think it's Martinique.
Oh, yeah.
Yellow, like the, what do they call that? The yellow pearl or whatever.
Yeah. They always seem to be,
like
have real bad paint fade, looks like.
Yeah, it's like the paint on the metal doesn't fade the same as the paint on the plastic,
Yeah.
so they always look like horrible. I got one of those for like $500, just so I could rob some headlights and stuff off of it. And then I ended up selling it for, I think, $600. Got some parts off of it. Transmission was jacked in it, so some dude drove from like Indianapolis and drove over here and gave me more than what I paid for it. So I was like, see ya.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
So just the two as my own driving cars, but I've owned a few of them.
Okay. Got a passion enough for them to make sure that they go to good homes, it sounds like, at least.
Yeah. And it's probably a problem, but I'm definitely a hoarder when it comes to parts for the Stealth and 3000 GTs, because if I find a part, even if I don't need it, like, I mean, I guess that motor that is in my car now was a good deal, but when I went down there, I was buying some headlights that don't even fit my car from Sean, because he had some 3S parts that he's a DSM guy, so he doesn't really mess with it, but he had acquired some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come buy it all off you. So I didn't need this engine that's in my car. At that current time, I didn't know I was going to need it. And I was like, I mean, who doesn't want an engine just sitting in their shop for, $50, $100? So I went down there and bought the engine, some headlights, something else. I can't remember what else I got off of them, but I went down there and bought that off of them. Come to find out I needed it. But it's just, if I see something that's worth it, I try and snag it up. I've got like 5 transmissions on the bottom shelf of my my wall of parts here. Just for, I know I'm going to be hard on the transmission, so I got a deal on 5 transmissions that were kind of parts trans. A couple of them fully together, a couple of them torn apart. None of the parts inside. I'm assuming the DSM trans and my trans, the gears aren't made anymore. There's only so much stuff available, so
right.
I know if I'm going to be hard on it and I'm going to be making some steam, I should probably have some extras.
Have some backups, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 2 sets of cylinder heads, so 4 total heads on my shelf, plus the 2 that are sent out to get worked on, plus the 2 on my old motor, plus the 2 that are on the motor that's in the car. So, I mean, I've got like excess amounts of cylinder heads and the 3000 GT brakes and AC compressors and valve covers. I mean, it's getting out of hand over here, I'll say that.
You name it, you got it.
Yeah, I can usually dive through a bin and find something that I need, like even interior pieces. I'm staring at carpet, like the whole interior carpet folded up and on the top shelf. So
a little bit of everything.
Harnesses. Yep, always good to have backups, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially like you said, they're not making it anymore, so you never know.
There was a guy down towards Mansfield, Ohio, years ago. He started buying them and parting them out. Well, it was easy for me because it's a 30-minute drive for me to go down there, so I would just go down there when he'd buy a new one and take my pick of what I wanted off these cars.
Oh,
I
killer.
don't have to worry about getting ripped off because, some people are shady on the internet, and then you pay for something and you don't get it, where if I can go there and look at it in front of me and stack all of it in a pile, like, what do you want for this pile? So that's how I acquired a lot of stuff.
Keeps him from having to do a lot of work, too.
Yeah, I got some second-gen side skirts for 3000 GT. I got 3 hoods, 3 hatches, 2 extra doors. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like a 3S stockpile over here.
Well, Sutton, if someone out there, they have a 3S and, it's mostly stock, they just want to maybe make some mods that get a little bit quicker, maybe they just hate money. What advice would you give?
They have to hate money. That's 100%.
What advice would you give them so they, can have as much money at the end as they can possibly have?
Call me up and listen to my advice. That would be my first go-to.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, there's a few people I could that would vouch for me on this, but if I find somebody that's got 3000 GT, I generally try and help them. I work on cars for a living. I know what it costs. I like working on these. For some stupid reason, I like working on them, and I don't want to see them get beat to hell and not repaired right and end up being another scrapyard car.
Right.
So if I can help somebody local, even not local, but I mean, generally in the Ohio area, I try and help anyone with 3S that I can. I've got quite a few under my belt of ones that I've already done. Had somebody drive here from PA so that I could do some stuff for his. And one of the guys that I've already helped messaged me. We've been last weekend. He's like, "Hey, there's a guy close to you. I sold him some parts. He's looking for somebody to tune his car." Now, I'm not like, I'm not a Kevin Jewer type tuner, but I'm familiar enough with the Chrome ECU that, a small build like I have going on, I'm comfortable with tuning that myself, which is what this guy had, what he wanted to do. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good with that. Just give him my number. So that guy got a hold of me on Messenger, and I'm like, yeah, I would want you to come down so that we can make sure. I'm always against remote tuning just for the fact of, like, I hear so many horror stories of, like, people think their car is ready to be tuned, and we all know it's not.
Yeah.
And then they're fighting issues the entire time they're trying to do it, and diagnosing over the phone sucks. So if I can do it in person and actually look the car over, make sure it doesn't have boost leaks, make sure the ignition stuff's proper, the fuel pressure is proper, everything's actually wired properly, then I got a head start on it actually tuning properly. So I basically explained that to him. He's like, yeah, all right, I'll get over to you shortly. He messages me the next day. His car's on fire on the side of the highway.
Oh, my gosh.
The entire car burned to the ground. He's like, well, guess I'll have to start over. I'll give you a call when that comes finished. And I'm like, all right. So it's kind of sucked seeing a nice second-gen 3000 GT just burning up on the side of the highway.
Yeah. That's a nightmare.
I guess that also makes sense of why I want to do it in person, because I'm sure I probably would have figured that issue out right away. Like, that's going to cause your car to burn down, sir.
Yeah. It's one of those things you can catch that somebody might not be looking for.
Just people that shouldn't be working on cars that do work on cars and don't do stuff up to the spec that I expect things to be done, I guess, would be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people I work with that I'm like, why would you do that? Like, what would possess you to do a repair like that? Well, I don't know.
So, Sutton, what events can we see your car in action at next year and the rest of this year?
Definitely the shootout. Probably nothing this year. The input shaft seal is leaking at the shootout, actually. So it doesn't like to hold transmission fluid currently. Mm-hmm. I actually zip tied some pig mats underneath the where the transfer case meets the transmission, just so I wasn't leaking on the track for the weekend. But on that note, the transmission is going to have to come back out, so I'm hoping I get my engine parts back soon enough that I can just pull the transmission out and do the new motor all at the same time.
Yeah.
Because then I got to figure out, like, actually getting the turbo feed lines and drain lines and coolant lines and all that stuff from going to aftermarket turbos that isn't simple like it is on my current stock setup. So just getting all that done this winter and trying to be ready for next year. I live like 15 minutes from a real nice drag strip, so I will probably test there next year, spring and summer, and make sure I'm not going to the shootout blind with a completely new setup. But I will definitely be at the shootout next year. That's my one event for the year that I'm like, yep, got to make that one.
Got to make it.
Definitely be showing up on Thursday next year.
Yeah, my God, you were you needed to take a plane just to get down to where you were.
Yeah. Definitely the mini bikes come in handy for that.
Yeah,
it's definitely a plus.
I won't make that mistake again. Not bring something.
Yeah, even an e-scooter, dude. I mean,
yeah.
All the shootouts I've been to haven't ever been that packed, which makes sense. I mean, you guys put together a hell of a pot for a lot of the big guys to show up, and being that it was 30th anniversary, it was definitely a good show up in my opinion. So usually there would have never been anybody down that far, but I didn't realize that Thursday was a deal that if you pre-registered, you could get in early. So the shootout I went to prior to that one, I was third in line. Like, we showed up at like 8:30 in the morning over in Lender's lot, and I got free reign at where I wanted to park my trailer and the RV at. This year, I just kind of got what was left over.
Hell yeah. And yeah, you guys were down there far, but you had a good shot of the return road. Was that your brother that you was there with?
No, that's actually a 3S buddy that I met through
okay.
different stealth stuff. Nate Grow. He's also a sucker for punishment and likes his 3S like I do. So.
And he was racing an Evo 10 that weekend, or at the shootout, right?
Correct. Yeah. He's racing an Evo X was it an MR, I think, with the auto trans.
Oh yeah.
But they also, him and his ex-fiance, they're still good friends, but they kind of had all their cars together. So they had the Evo X, a first-gen Talon, slowly getting some nice mods to it. I think it's got a HX35 and a Morrison Fab manifold, but the output shaft on that trans is whipped, so that's why that car wasn't there, and he brought the Evo X instead. And then he's got 3 or 4 stealths in different current situations. One needing paint that's already put together, and then like a stock red one like mine, with a 99 front end, and then he's got a drive TT 3000. So just, met another stealth head and became great friends after that. It's usually my go-to for people to hang out with or help me in the shop. So definitely props to him. He's the one. He's the one that came over when I actually was in the process of putting the new motor in. Me and him stayed out here till like 4:30 in the morning, just knocking this thing out. So
killer.
If I had to thank anybody, it would definitely be him, because he's always my go-to for help. Whether it's off-roading, like we currently have his side-by-side apart in my shop. So we just help each other and use my tools and my knowledge and get shit done.
Hell yeah. Well, Sutton, where can people find and follow and see more of this beautiful stealth of yours?
On my Facebook page would be probably the go-to. I suppose at some point I should probably make an Instagram or something, but I feel like an old man and I've just never sat down and put some time into that. So I think I got a YouTube channel. Trying to think what it is. I think it's YXZ3S is the YouTube channel, but I think I got some of my autocross videos on there, some of my side-by-side videos. Not a lot of content, but slowly working on it with my GoPro and I got a GoPro drone, so been adding some footage with that, and that's always cool.
Yeah, heck yeah. I
did notice I got one small shot from the GoPro at the shootout. Somebody told me you're not supposed to have them there, so I didn't want to get too ballsy with it and take it too far down and have them like stop the race because my drone's out flying around. So yeah. I was pretty quick with it, but I wanted an aerial shot just to show how many people actually showed up. So I got one posted on the shootout page. Nobody said anything about me not being able to have it there, so that was cool. But then somebody made like a compilation video, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, hey, that's my drone footage. They took my video and added it to there, so I would at least like a little shout out for that,
Right, yeah. It's not like a, hey, do you mind?
Yeah. Is what it is, though. It's all good coverage, so at least it's out there, and probably going to get more views than mine did, so at least it's getting watched.
Yeah, that's fair.
Purpose of it.
Well, Sutton, you kind of beat me to it, but is there anybody that you want to give a thanks or a shout out to?
Yeah, Chris from Revenge, obviously. My buddy Nate, all the people that have helped me with it. My buddy Chris that initially got the car looking good to where I felt like it was worth saving. My wife for never bitching about me being out in the shop all weekend long for doing stuff like this. She knows I love it, so she doesn't say anything about it. Let me think here. Definitely Jeff Davis. He has the TD04 record for the 3S. I want to say it's 10, low 10s maybe, which is pretty impressive. He actually added me to a group chat with a lot of the heavy hitters in the 3S game, which has been nothing but valuable to me for certain parts and group buys and knowledge questions and things like that. So Frank Gaggy, he makes a lot of the billet parts for the 3S. So I don't know if you've seen the billet motor mount that I got, but I try and save money where I can. I'm not so finicky on, it's got to be perfect looking. So if he's got like a prototype part that doesn't meet his specs for final finish on the product, I'll get it at a discounted rate. Still looks good. If I wanted to take the time and really like polish it up even better, I could, and I could make it just as good as one of the others. But currently I just don't want it to look like crap, and I don't want it to be slow. So all those parts fit the bill for me. So I've got a lot of bill of goods from him. He's the one that did that shifter knob buy that I was telling you about. Very rare shifter knob for the 3S from Japan. I don't think there was ever really any of them, a high number of them made. It's made out of titanium. So he had one of those actually reproduced. Super costly piece. And he decided that the prototype was so good he was just going to keep that. So he had one extra one. And I'm like, you know what? Let me get that. So got me this nice shifter knob. Sounds stupid that I paid so much for it, but I'm happy about it. It definitely fits the hand perfect, and kind of, even though it's a replica, it's a very, very well done replica, and still, even that's, I think 20 of them were made, so they're already all gone.
And like anybody who, goes to your Facebook or whatever and sees the interior of your car, like you don't really notice it until you're looking for it. Then you're like, oh man, that really, like, with how clean your interior is, and then that shift knob, you're like, oh man, this is like the perfect set of what one of these interiors can look like.
I'm telling you, I don't know why, but the 3S seats are always torn and ripped, and somehow I met a sucker, and he was like, oh, I'm going to put racing seats in my car, and I'm like, what do you want for your original ones? And he's like, $175. So I drove 5.5 hours one way into PA with a little hatchback Dodge Caliber years ago, and threw all the seats in the car and drove back. And no rips, no tears, perfect coloring. Like, just random deals like that is honestly like what's made the car so nice. Like, I'm constantly scouring through the Facebook pages waiting for deals to pop up and be the first one to jump on them, because that's half the game right there. Absolutely.
You got to be on Marketplace all the time to find the good deals.
Yes. Probably cost me some money in the end, but
It is what it is.
Yep, like my cars, and I like them to be nice. So,
well, Sutton, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. I hope people go and follow you. And I can't stress it enough. You have to see Sutton's Stealth either in pictures. I mean, I'd prefer you to see it in person, but it is something to see for sure.
I appreciate that.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I will talk to you soon. Hopefully I get an update from you early spring after you get the new setup in.
All right.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.